In 1927, a massive federal raid put a large quantity of Innsmouth residents into federal internment camps. Part of the town and surrounding reef were supposedly blown up. There had been stories of strange people in Innsmouth for years, but the tale of one poor visitor pushed it over the edge, and a secret investigation revealed the true terrors of the town. A young man touring New England as a rite of passage was travelling to Arkham, but the cheapest route involved a bus through Innsmouth. And despite warnings, he decided to go. The bus broke down and he had to stay overnight, finding only horror and terror, causing him to flee down a disused railway track. But worse was to come when he discovered his true lineage. All in The Shadow over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft. Link to part 1 above. To help us grow, please like, subscribe, and be sure to click the bell. But just as importantly, comment and share. The algorithm must be fed, and comments are one of its favourite meals. You might want to help guide our explorations of the strange, dark and terrible by joining the Eldritch Order on Discord. You can via our Patreon or YouTube, coming soon. We release 3 episodes a week, 2 live streams that chat guides the story on, and complete versions when a story concludes. In part 3, old Zadock starts his story on the true history of Innsmouth. Is Zadock telling the truth, or just a crazy strange old man? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But for now, it's time to enter the Cave of Chronicles. I had been assured that the old man could do nothing but hint at wild, disjointed and incredible legends. I had been warned that the natives made it unsafe to be seen talking with him. Yet the thought of this aged witness to the town's decay, with memories going back to the early days of ships and factories, was a lure that no amount of reason could make me resist. Curiosity flared up beyond sense and caution, and in my youthful egotism I fancied I might be able to sift a nucleus of real history from the confused, extravagant outpouring I would probably extract with the aid of whiskey. A quart bottle of such was easily, though not cheaply, obtained in the rear of a dingy variety store just off the square in Elliott Street. Re-entering the square, I saw that luck was with me, for shuffling out of Payne Street, around the corner of the Gilman house, I glimpsed nothing less than the tall, lean, tattered form of old Zadock Allen himself. In accordance with my plan, I attracted his attention by brandishing my newly purchased bottle, and soon realised that he had begun to shuffle wistfully after me as I turned into Waite Street on my way to the most deserted region I could think of. Before I reached Main Street, I could hear a faint and wheezy "Hey, mister," behind me, and I presently allowed the old man to catch up and take copious pulls from the quart bottle. I began putting out feelers as we walked along to Walter Street and turned southward amidst the omnipresent desolation and crazily tilted ruins, but found that the aged tongue did not loosen as quickly as I had expected. At length I saw a grass-grown opening towards the sea between crumbling brick walls, with the weedy length of an earth and masonry wharf projecting beyond. Piles of moss-covered stones near the water promised tolerable seats, and the scene was sheltered from all possible view by a ruined warehouse on the north. About 4 hours remained for conversation if I were to catch the 8 o'clock coach for Arkham, and I began to dole out more liquor to the ancient tippler, meanwhile eating my own frugal lunch. In my donations, I was careful not to overshoot the mark, for I did not wish Zadock's Venus garrulousness to pass into a stupor. After an hour, his furtive taciturnity showed signs of disappearing, and something or other had caused his wandering gaze to light on the low distant line of Devil Reef, then showing plainly and almost fascinatingly above the waters. He bent towards me, took hold of my coat lapel, and hissed out some hints that could not be mistaken.
That's where it all began. The cursed place of all wickedness, where the deep water starts. Gate of hell, sheer drop down to a bottom no sounding line can take. Oh, Captain Obed done it. Him that found out more than was good for him in the South Sea Islands. Never was nobody like Captain Obed. Oh, limb of Satan. I can mind him a-telling about foreign parts and calling all the folks stupid for going to Christian meeting and bearing their burdens meek and lowly. Says they ought to get better gods like some of the folks in the Innsmouth. Gods as would bring them good fishing in return for their sacrifices, and would really answer folks' prayers. Matt Elliot, his first mate, talked a lot too, only he was agin folks doing any heathen things. Told about an island east of Arthur Hut, while there was a lot of stone ruins older than anybody knew anything about. Kinda like them on Ponapape in the Carolines, but the carving on faces that looked like the big statues on Easter Island. There was a little volcanic island near there too, while there was other ruins with different carvings, ruins all wore away like they'd been under the sea once, and with pictures of awful monsters all over them. Well, sir, Matt, he says, the natives around there had all the fish they could catch, and sported bracelets and armlets and head rings, and made about a lot of queer kind of gold, and covered with pictures of monsters just like the ones carved over the ruins on the little island. Sort of fish-like frogs, or frog-like fishes, that was drawed in all kind of positions like they was human beings. Nobody could get out of them what they got all the stuff, and all the other natives wondered how they managed to find fish in plenty, even when the very next island had lean pickings. Matt had got to wondering too, and so did Captain Obed. Obed, he notices, besides that lots of handsome young folks had dropped out of sight for good from year to year, and that there weren't many old folks around. Also, he thinks some of the folks looked damn queer, even for them islanders. It took Obed to get the truth out of them heathens. I don't know how he done it, but he began by trading for the gold, like things they wore. Asked them where they come from, and if they could get more, and finally wormed the story out of the old chief Wakia, they called him. Nobody but Obed had ever believed the old devil, but the captain could read folks like they was books. Nobody never believes me now when I tell them. And I don't suppose you were, young fella, though come to look at ye have kinda got them sharp reading eyes, like old Obed had.
The old man's whisper grew fainter, and I found myself shuddering at the terrible and sincere portentousness of the intonation, even though I knew his tale could be nothing but drunken fantasy.
Well, sir, Obed, he learned that there's things on this earth as most folks never heard about, and wouldn't believe if they did hear. It seems them islanders were sacrificing heaps of their young men and maidens to some kind of god things that lived under the sea, and getting all kinds of favors in return. They met the things on the little islet with the queer ruins, and it seems them awful pickers of frogfish monsters was supposed to be pictures of these things. Maybe there was all kind of critters as got the mermaid stories and such started. They had all kinds of cities on the sea bottom, and this island was heaved up from there. Seems there was some kind of things alive in the stone buildings when the island come up sudden to the surface. That's how the islanders got wind they was down there. Made sign talk as soon as they got over being scared and pieced up a bargain afore long. Them things liked human sacrifices, had 'em ages afore and lost track of the upper world after a time. What they done to the victims ain't for me to say, and I guess Obed wasn't none too sharp about asking. But it was all right with the heathens, because they'd been having a hard time and was desperate about everything. They gave a certain number of young folks to the sea things twixt every year, May Eve and Halloween, regular as could be. Also gave some of the carved knickknacks they made. What the things agreed to give in return was plenty of fish. They drove them from all over the sea, and a few gold-like things now and then. When it come to mating with them toad-looking fishes, them islanders kinda balked, but finally they learned something has put a new face on the matter. Seems that human folks has got a kind of relation to such water beasts, that everything alive came and out of the water once, and only needs a little change to go back again. Them things told them islanders that if they mixed bloods, there'd be children as'd look human at first, but latter turned more and more like the things, till finally they'd take to the water and join the main lot of the things down there. And that is the important part, young fella. As them turned into fish things and went into the water, would never die. Them things never died except they was killed violent. Well, sir, it seems by the time Obed knowed them islanders, they was all full of flesh blood from them deep water things. When they got old and began to show it, they was kept hid until they felt like taking to the water and quitting the place. Some was more ticked than others, and some never did change quite enough to take to the water, but mostly they turned out just the way them things said. Them as was born more like the things changed early, but them as was nearly human sometimes stayed on the island till they was past 70, though they'd usually go down under for trial trips afore that. Folks as had took to the water generally come back a good deal to visit, so a man would often be talking to his own 5 times great-grandfather, who'd left the dry land a couple of 100 years afore. Everybody got out of the idea of dying except in canoe wars with the other islanders, or as sacrifices to sea gods down below, or from snakebite, or plague, or sharp galloping ailments, or something afore they could take to the water, but simply looked forward to a kind of change that wasn't a bit horrible out of a while. They thought what they'd got was well worth what they'd had to give up. And I guess Obed kind of come to think the same himself when he chewed over the Watakia story a bit. Watakia, though, was one of the few as hadn't none of the fish blood, being of royal line that intermarried with royal lines on other islands. Watakia gave him a funny kind of thingamajig made out of lead or something, and said it'd bring up the fish things from any place in the water where there might be a nest of them. The idea was to drop it down with the right kind of prayers and such. Watakia allowed as was the thing as was scattered all over the world, so anybody that looked about could find a nest and bring them up if they wanted. Matt, he didn't like this business at all and wanted Obed should keep away from the island, but the captain was sharp for gain and favoured he could get them gold-like things so cheap it'd pay him to make a speciality of them. Things went on that way for years, and Obed got enough of that gold stuff to make him start the refinery in Wade's old run-down fulling mill. Well, come about 38, when I was 7 years old, Obed, he found the island people all wiped out between voyages. Seems the other islanders had got wind of what was going on and took matters into their own hands. Suppose they must have had, after all. Them old magic signs, as the sea says, was the only things they was afraid of. No telling what any of them islanders will chance to get hold of when the sea bottom throws up some island with ruins older than the deluge. Pious cussies these was, and they didn't leave nothing standing on either the main island or the little volcanic islet, except what parts of the ruins was too big to knock down. That naturally hit Obed pretty hard, seeing as his normal trade was doing very poor. It hit the whole of Innsmouth too, because in seafaring days, what profited the master of a ship generally profited the crew proportionate. Most of the folks around the town took the hard times kind of sheep-like and resigned. But they was in bad shape because the fishing was petering out and the mills wasn't doing none too well. Then's the time Obed began a-cursing at the folks for being dull sheep and praying to a Christian haven as didn't help him none. He told him he'd known of folks that prayed to gods that give something ye really need, and says if a good bunch of men would stand by him, he could maybe get a hold of certain powers that'd bring plenty of fish and quite a bit of gold.
Here the old man faltered, mumbled, and lapsed into a moody and apprehensive silence, glancing nervously over his shoulder and then turning back to stare fascinatedly at the distant black reef. When I spoke to him, he did not answer, so I knew I would have to let him finish the bottle. He licked its nose and slipped it into his pocket, then beginning to nod and whisper softly to himself. So ends part 3 of The Shadow over Innsmouth. In part 4, old Zadock continues his story at the constant risk of discovery. Remember to comment on what you think is true in Zadock's words. The most deserving comment will be pinned to the top. If you enjoyed the tale, it helps us if you let others know, so please click the like button and share with others that may be interested. Subscribing will let you travel with us on further adventures of the dark and terrible, with the bell notifying you as we set off. If you want to join our Eldritch Order on Discord, come visit us on Patreon or YouTube, coming soon. Then you can join in the discussions and even help guide the choice of stories. There is an ever-growing list of insane benefits. See the description for details of the Patreon and for a link to Canje Studios to find out how modern board games can help you create your own dark and terrible stories. Until next time, farewell. But if you wish to live forever, remember, immortality is a curse disguised as a gift, where endless time becomes a prison, and the soul is forever haunted by the shadows of forgotten lives.